So I've managed to milk 3 videos out of this one Demarcus Cousins trade. I think that's pretty good, I would say. But I also think there's things to be said in each video. And I talked about the trade from the perspective of the Pelicans yesterday. I talked about the trade from the perspective of the Kings a couple hours ago. You can find both of those videos as the top comment in this video, unless YouTube freaks out or whatever. But now I want to see how this team would fare against the rest of the Western Conference, just some of the top teams, how they match up and all that good stuff. In this video, by the way, you're going to see me go pretty toe-to-toe with the Warriors, and then I stubbornly try to score with Anthony Davis inside like 9 plays in a row, and it never works, so that's cool. And I'll just tell you, a running theme with this video before I really go in here is 1, Demarcus Cousins' three-point shooting, which is going to allow them to stretch out a lot of opposing big men, Rudy Gobert, DeAndre Jordan, Marc Gasol, to name a couple very good defensive centers who might have to step out and defend Boogie, or they're going to have to step out and defend Anthony Davis from mid-range, which gives the other guy more opportunity. But another theme is also how good of a defensive player really is Demarcus Cousins, because I think teams, and this is what I would do, is I would find power forwards for Anthony Davis to defend to where he has to chase them around the perimeter, and then you attack Demarcus Cousins in pick and rolls and things like that. You'll see what I mean. And we can start with the Golden State Warriors. Of course, Anthony Davis and Demarcus Cousins are 2 big guys. They can score inside very well. They're going to be the power forward in the center. Demarcus is physical as all hell, and he can post up down low, and he can bully guys, and Anthony Davis, while he doesn't have the strength of Demarcus, he's very difficult to stop going to the rim as well, and the Warriors have definitely had trouble defending Anthony Davis in the past. I mean, Draymond Green is an awesome defensive player, but at a certain point, the guy facing you is just too big, and I think there are times when Demarcus could post up on Draymond, and to be fair, Draymond has been very good at defending the post over the years just because he's got a low center of gravity and he's pretty strong. But Boogie might just be too strong for Draymond to really deal with in the post. He would definitely have a better time against Anthony Davis, I would say. So I think that's the first step towards perhaps causing a headache for the Warriors, is having a way to go at Draymond Green. Now, it should be said, Draymond is probably going to defend Anthony Davis all the time, and Anthony Davis, a lot of his offense still comes from pick and rolls, and Draymond, of course, is fantastic when it comes to defending the pick and roll and kind of being able to defend both guys at the same time with the roll guy, or in Anthony Davis's case, sometimes the pop guy, but also be able to kind of shade the point guard enough to where he can't just do whatever he wants. But of course, this is a super talented front court, and I think if there are times when you're going to have to bring a double team on Anthony Davis or Demarcus Cousins if you're the Warriors, you just say, screw it, Dante Cunningham and Etuan Moore and Caspi and Solomon Hill, you guys are going to have to beat us. If you guys hit a flurry of 3-pointers, then, well, we're just going to have to take that because we're not going to allow Anthony Davis and Demarcus Cousins to have single coverage all the time going to the basket. I think some other ways that the Warriors could defend these guys is like, the Warriors are really good when it comes to swiping at the ball, and when they're choosing to double team, they can be very good. They can kind of come out of nowhere and have a swarm mentality on the ball. I think that's a way that you could go at these guys, and then because they have so many good defenders, they could make sure that someone's on Anthony Davis. If Demarcus Cousins is posting up, you bring 3 guys and you make sure AD is covered, and then Boogie's got to pass out to somebody else, and you're kind of forcing the other guys to beat you pretty much. I think that's a valid strategy that Golden State would be very good at because they have so many good defensive players. Also, they're going to have to deal with Draymond Green on the other end, because whether it's Anthony Davis or at times Demarcus Cousins on him, like, Draymond's awesome when it comes to moving along the perimeter and setting screens and immediately cutting to the basket or finding ways to get open off of Steph Curry and Klay Thompson and Kevin Durant stuff. And that can be tough to deal with, especially for Demarcus Cousins. I think Anthony Davis would have an easier time, but if Anthony Davis is chasing Draymond Green around the perimeter, that means there's only one guy in the paint, and it's Demarcus Cousins, and Boogie's never been the best defensive player. He's shown signs of being a defender, but if Anthony Davis is floating around the perimeter trying to deal with Draymond, you can just attack Boogie at will. I mean, you could just have pick and rolls with Steph and Klay and Kevin Durant and force Boogie to play defense, and I don't know if he can. And if Anthony Davis brings help, well, now Draymond Green's wide open. He can sometimes hit a three-pointer depending on what day of the week it is, but he's so good at putting the ball on the floor and making a pass, it's like they're still going to have a really tough time dealing with the Warriors. So in a 7-game series, I think Golden State would still beat them in 5 or 6 games. I say 6 because maybe just the sheer size and talent of the front court could be too much for the Warriors to deal with. I don't think they actually have a chance of beating the Warriors at this very moment. Now, if they do a good job over the next couple of seasons of surrounding these two with just some wing players who can create a bit more and are perhaps better defenders and just better knockdown players, then I'd think they'd have a better shot. Because one thing I forgot to mention is they're also going to have to just defend Steph and Clay and Durant, and that's impossible for anybody, especially a team of, Drew Holiday is a nice perimeter defender, but you're looking at Etuan Moore, Caspi, Hill, Cunningham. I mean, some of those guys can play defense, but it's one thing to play defense, and it's another to actually have a chance against the Warriors and the things they do on the perimeter, and Steph and Durant's ability to just kill you with any shot, and the way Steph and Clay run around screens. And I mean, it's very difficult to defend these guys, and I just don't think the Pelicans have enough right now. But Boogie and AD could definitely make it interesting because they're just so freaking good up front, which is the Warriors' one kind of weakness is dealing with size. We can talk about the San Antonio Spurs. Good luck, Pau Gasol, dealing with whoever the hell you get matched up on if you end up facing these guys over the next couple of seasons or whatever, because Gasol has trouble defensively. He's going to have no chance dealing with Anthony Davis in pick and rolls. He's going to have no chance defending Demarcus Cousins in the post, or if Boogie wants to take him one-on-one. LaMarcus Aldridge is a good enough defensive player to where I think he could survive in that sort of thing. Now, I do think Dwayne Dedmon would have a chance, but, Dedmon might not be on the Spurs next season just because he's got a player option. I'm sure he's going to decline it, and someone who's looking for some defense and athleticism is probably going to scoop up Dedmon. Spurs could have a real tough time defending these guys. Now, on the flip side of things, I think LaMarcus Aldridge, similar to Draymond Green, can stretch Anthony Davis away from the paint because, Aldridge is an awesome mid-range shooter, and I have to assume at some point he's going to become a knockdown three-point shooter. I mean, he is shooting 40% from 3 this season, but it's on less than 1 a game, so I don't know what that means. It should also be said, Pau Gasol has been a really good shooter this season as well, so I think these two could definitely stretch out Anthony Davis and Boogie to where they can't just chill in the paint the entire time and make it super tough for you to score. And also, the Spurs are a very smart offensive team. They can use Kawhi Leonard and Patty Mills and LaMarcus Aldridge pick and rolls to go at these two, and I think they would be all right. Again, they would definitely have trouble dealing with just the strength and the athleticism of these two, because I think there's a definite mismatch up front, but the Spurs are very good. I think they'll find ways to get Anthony Davis out of the play. They'll go right at DeMarcus Cousins. I think they would play LaMarcus Aldridge at center when DeMarcus Cousins is in the game, and they would just be like, hey, Boogie, can you defend us? Because I think there's a real conversation to be made on how good of a defensive player DeMarcus Cousins really is. And then once again, it comes back to the Cunningham and the Hill and the Caspi and the Moore. It's like, who the hell is going to defend Kawhi Leonard? Because I don't know who it's going to be. I mean, he's an awesome three-point shooter. He's awesome from everywhere. He's one of the most efficient players in the NBA. So I think San Antonio would still be smart enough to deal with it. But again, they would definitely have a tough time dealing with just how good of offensive players Anthony Davis and DeMarcus Cousins are. Like, it's really ridiculous what they have here in the front court. For the Houston Rockets, Ryan Anderson, he might have less of a chance of dealing with these two than Pau Gasol does. Anthony Davis could go for 50 points if he's defended by Ryan Anderson the entire game. And whether he gets matched up with Boogie or Anthony Davis, similar to Gasol, he's not going to have a chance in hell of defending these two. And I think if I'm the Pelicans, I'm going at him every single time he's in the game with pick and rolls with Drew Holiday, and if he's on Boogie, you post him up, and I mean, you can just abuse that for a playoff series. But then again, on the flip side of things, Ryan Anderson being a very good three-point shooter, once again, one of these guys is going to have to defend him, and then as a result of that, you can stretch out the Pelicans' defense, and if Anthony Davis has to defend him and you have Ryan Anderson running across screens, it could once again open up the idea of Demarcus Cousins being the center in the paint who really has to play the defense down there. And at that point, the Rockets, with their awesome pick-and-roll heavy game with James Harden and Clint Capella, you're forcing Demarcus Cousins to have to defend that. Now, another running theme is these two are just going to be too damn hard to deal with when you're trying to stop them. I mean, look, these are two fantastic offensive players. I assume they're going to put up a lot of point totals on teams, and I mean, one legit strategy is just going to be force their wings to beat you. Now, some teams are not good enough defensively, like the Warriors, to be smart enough to know like when to double and when to perhaps triple team sometimes, and double team one guy and make sure the other guy is not wide open. It's tough to do those kind of things, and not every single team is going to be able to do it. I think the Spurs will be fine. I think the Warriors will be fine. So yeah, if we go to the Clippers, interesting front court matchup. Blake Griffin and DeAndre Jordan against these two. Weirdly enough, I think this is one of the front courts that from just like an athleticism and rebounding standpoint would not get killed by these two. They'd still have a really tough time defending them, but Blake is perhaps as athletic as Anthony Davis. He has declined a bit as he's gotten older, and DeAndre is more athletic than Demarcus, and he's a very good defensive center, so I do think that's one of the front courts where they wouldn't just have to bring so much help and everything. Like, yeah, Blake and DeAndre definitely have their work cut out for them, but I don't think it's a lost cause either. Now, one interesting thing that should be said is because of DeMarcus Cousins' ability to hit three-pointers, DeAndre might have to go out to the three-point line, which means Anthony Davis has all the room in the world to operate inside the paint. That could be something, because now you're taking DeAndre Jordan out of the play, and you're relying on Blake Griffin to do a lot of defensive stuff, which, Blake has been kind of a disappointment as a defensive player, in my opinion. He's not awful, but when I look at his size and athleticism, I'm like, why the hell are you not Draymond Green? But he just isn't. I don't know. Anyway, we're already at 12 minutes. I don't want to go all day on this video, so I think in the case of the Utah Jazz, DeMarcus Cousins' three-point shooting would also potentially stretch out Rudy Gobert, or you could have Gobert defend Anthony Davis, which, I mean, both of these guys can move along the floor well, so there's a chance that Gobert is just simply not in the paint, providing his extremely intimidating rim protection. But Derek Favors, if they decide to keep him, when healthy, is also a very good defender who can move around the floor well, and I'm sure he could stick with both of these guys pretty well. He also is pretty strong, so he might not be a lost cause defending DeMarcus Cousins inside the paint. But the Jazz don't really have a stretch four type of player to take Anthony Davis out of the paint, and if AD's in there and then Boogie can kind of hang around as well against Gobert, the Jazz could have a tough matchup against the Pelicans when it comes to the front court stuff. The Memphis Grizzlies, I would definitely want to see Marc Gasol versus these two. I mean, Gasol can shoot threes, Boogie can shoot threes, they both take each other out of the paint, and I think JaMychal Green would actually have at least a fighter's chance against Anthony Davis given his athleticism and defense. But once again, I mean, it's a theme where it's like Boogie's three-point shooting taking the opposing big man out of the paint could be a real thing. Those are the top 6 seeds. I think I'm done at this point. The Pelicans are not a complete roster, but I do think just the versatility and the ability of Boogie and AD is going to cause NBA defenses to have a lot of questions they have to answer about how to defend these two, and I don't think any of them are going to work because these guys are great. I just think if the Pelicans can step up their other guys, the guys along the wing, and be real defensive players as well as three-point shooters, perhaps one other creator besides Drew Holiday, they could be something.